Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. This is the Hagir show. Hagir and I are so grateful for everyone that tunes in every week, everyone who comments and participates with us on the show, and everyone who shares the love. So we have an absolutely incredible show for you today. We are honored to have two special guests with us today. We have Victor Alfonso Cabral and TaLisa Ramos-Watts. They are both from the Governor's Office of Advocacy and Reform. So thank you so much, Victor and TaLisa. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, so you both have very interesting lives, very varied backgrounds. And so if I'm going to give you guys the floor, if you could just quickly introduce yourself, let our audience have an idea of who you are and how you spend your days. So we'll let TaLisa go first. Ladies first.
Sure. Absolutely. Hello, everybody. As mentioned, my name is TaLisa Ramos-Watts. I am a licensed social worker in the state of Pennsylvania, as well as a mental health therapist. My primary focus deals with ancestral healing, cultural trauma, and identity development. That's where my heart and my soul really lies. And then, of course, one of my biggest passions is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm so humbled that I just transitioned into this new position as the director of DEI education for the state of Pennsylvania. So I feel so blessed with that. Other than that, I'm coming from you live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So I'm sending you all just so much love.
Perfect. Thank you. Victor, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so TaLisa and I are like twins in some ways. We've been friends for a long time, but I'm also a licensed social worker and a psychotherapist. My full-time job is deputy director of the Pennsylvania Governor's Office of Advocacy and Reform, and in my my position as a psychotherapist, my focus is on racial identity, depression, anxiety, and I'd like to work. Most of my work has been with Black and Brown communities in Reading, Harrisburg, and Philadelphia. And I also sometimes see clients from outside of the state, in states that we're licensed in, New Jersey, because Black and Brown therapists are so hard to find. A lot of times people will seek out therapists from other states. And in addition to my work as a psychotherapist, I'm also a DEI consultant with Harvest 3, which TaLisa and I both work for that organization. We just launched last week. And I also am in training to provide psychedelic assisted therapy. So I'm currently in training to provide MDMA assisted therapy. We'll be traveling to Colorado next month for training, or this month now, for training in ketamine assisted therapy. And yeah, I have a lot of hats that I wear and a lot of different passions, but at the end of the day, really serving historically marginalized communities is really my passion and what I do. And you'll see why when I talk a little bit more about myself.
Yeah. I mean, incredible. You just kept adding and getting better and better, and you're kind of getting every facet there. So before we get into like the nitty gritty of who you guys are, help us understand what the Office of Advocacy is really about. Where did that come from? How long has it been around? What's the atmosphere like, and what's the purpose? So Victor, why don't you take that away, and then TaLisa, you can jump into.
Sure. So the office was established in 2019 through executive order by Governor Wolf, and it came from recommendations that were made through the Council on Reform. And so that office was established to advocate for vulnerable populations across the Commonwealth. And also, in addition to an executive director, they also, in that office, housed a child advocate as well as a long-term care ombudsman. And the purpose of that was really to create an office that was going to focus on the issues affecting vulnerable populations. So that would be Black and Brown communities, that would be LGBTQ. I mean, you name it, it's in our purview. And since then, we've grown little by little. And so we just recently added a team, and now we'll be also taking over diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts for the state. And the atmosphere in the office is it's creative, it's passionate. I was very deliberate in my transition into that office because I knew that I would be able to really focus on the things that I'm passionate about. And so I'm excited to go to work every day. I'm excited to work with Dr. Dan German, who's our executive director. He's really done amazing work in Lancaster, Florida, and has always been a champion for poverty, um, reducing poverty, eliminating poverty. And so it's great. I love it. And I'll let TaLisa talk a little bit about herself and her new position.
Yeah, yeah, and I have to echo Victor's sentiments. Um, and when he said we're twins, we really are because his words just like heavily resonate with me so much. And in regards to our office, it's an amazing dynamic team. So we just recently we get our last team member, the director of DEI communications for the state, and then we also have, as well as my position, a director of DEI holistically for the state. So it's a three-person team, and we are just so excited to get in and get in there. And within the whole team, I think we have over 30 years of experience within higher education, within community work, within diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So we are just so excited to dive in and really streamline some great grassroots efforts that are happening already on the state level, and just coming to support them and really pour into those individuals who are passionate about serving vulnerable populations and making things equitable.
You both are beautiful. That's all I can say.
She just pops up, gives you a comment,
We are
goes
lucky
back to
to
doing her
have
work.
you both in our lives.
Yeah.
Seriously, well needed.
Mhm. I think it's one, surprising that that office was just established in 2019.
Yeah.
And I also think that it's beautiful that we have resources, that we actually have resources, and that we are actually going to be performing something like on a governmental level. So do you think that this is a place, because I tend to think as a progressive that if government's done well, it can be done as an art form. So do you think this is a place where government can do good work, where we can actually put good people in there and, like you're saying, connect with people that are not connected to the government, and we can actually collaborate in that way? What do you think, TaLisa?
Yeah, I do, and I'll be quite honest with you. Victor has been at the office a bit longer than I have. Well, longer than I have, right? And he's been doing work there for quite some time. But I am just overjoyed. I think my soul is just filled with excitement, to be quite honest with you, to see these initiatives. And I think within these past 2 years, we have seen so much, right? Like with the pandemic, with initiatives that have been happening in the grassroots level within the community, regarding Black Lives Matter, as well as, racism. We really had two pandemics going on at the same time, to be completely honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So to see that there is even this office that is dedicated to this great work, I'm really humbled, to be quite honest with you, and I can't wait to see what happens, and what further will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and from I before coming to state government, I was a psychotherapist and did a lot of community work. So this is my first, our office, I think most of us, it's our first time in state government. And so I think, and there's a lot of excitement around, when this office was launched and even now, and the work that we're doing. And I do think that there's room in government for, especially in non-elected positions, to really make, have an opportunity to make change, right? And so what I've seen in my time in state government is there's a lot of young people, there's a lot of social workers in different policy positions that are able to bring these different perspectives when we're talking about implementing policies in certain communities, or making certain changes to regulation, et cetera. And so, yeah, I think outside of our office, I think whether or not our office exists, I think that it's very important, and that there is an opportunity to really do some good work, working in the policy area, working in positions that you're not necessarily elected into, but that you're supporting and providing information and providing perspectives and bringing your life experience to the table to be able to give some substance to some of the ideas and changes that are being made.
I'm gonna snap on that, y'all, because that's so real. I'm gonna snap on it. And it is, right? And let's be real, right? Like, and I know we're gonna get into a little bit of our story, but when I was growing up, like, there was a time where I was houseless. There was a time where we were on food stamps, right? Where we were going to food banks. So when I'm in government and we're having these meetings and we're talking about equitable planning and ensuring that our vulnerable populations are heard, I'm like, yeah, let's talk about it, because I've been there. I've been in those lines, right?
All four of us. All four of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right? And that's the thing. So, and we're not alone in that. Like, Victor and I are not alone in that. There's others who have experienced that too. And to have those voices sitting at the table, and not only just sitting at the table, because I mean, we have seen within different agencies and things of that sort where there's people of color, or there are individual from minoritized populations that their face is at the table, but are they heard? And one thing that really gives me just hope and also just happiness is that our voices are being heard at the table.
That's the crucial difference too. It's not just tokenism. It's actually, building around this, that you honestly cannot build something unless you have the background and the knowledge. How are you going to help heal intergenerational trauma if you don't have any experience with that? And how beautiful is it that you come with that, and everything that you've gone through, you are now pulling on, and it has this weighted value now. It's going to be the exact thing that you need to put into place for the next generation. So yeah, my question is we always see the finished product, we see the impressive people in front of us now, but how did you get to this place? We have some guests, like we had Brian Sims on last week, and his path was a straight shot. He always kind of knew where he was going to go. A lot of other people, like we had Tim DeFore on, it's a meandering path, and you kind of end up where you are, and you weren't quite, you can't quite understand how you got there. So TaLisa, tell us, what was it like? How did you get here? What did you go through? And could you have ever imagined yourself in the place where you are now?
No.
Right?
I don't know. And I'm so honest with that. And, I do adjunct faculty on the side at a local college. And I share with them my story too. Like, I never would have ever guessed I would have finished college, right? But then also be where I'm at today. My grandfather, he had such a huge dream that he wanted to come from Puerto Rico, from the countryside of Puerto Rico, where he was living in extreme poverty. I mean, he didn't have his first pair of shoes until he was like 12, right? Never finished elementary school, right? But he had this huge dream that he wanted to take his family to the mainland, to the States. And my, family came and settled in Reading, Pennsylvania. And my mother, of course, she did not get the chance to finish high school because I came a little early. But the one thing that she instilled in me was that my daughter's going to graduate from high school and she's going to go to college. So when I was growing up, Heather, I didn't know there was any other options other than to go to college. Okay. I didn't have any other options. That was the route that I had to take. And I was so blessed that I had some people in high school that took me under their wing. I was first generation, so I was kind of just going through the motions, not really sure what I was doing. But, thank goodness I did end up at a college, right? And I ended up at a predominantly white institution where I struggled immensely, right? I'm coming from inner city Reading, where the majority of us in Reading are Black and Latinx, and I go plop into central rural PA, and nobody looks like me, nobody's listening to the same music, nobody's, I had a real struggle with feeling like I belonged there. So I was in classes, nobody looked like me, everybody seemed to get it. So I fell into, honestly, this deep depression, and I started to withdraw from going to classes. I stayed in my dorm. And of course, it caught up to me. I got kicked out of college my first semester. and I went back to Reading, and I tried to get back there before my mom got that letter that I was dismissed from the university. But I didn't, of course. So it was a long winter of just really trying to find myself, knowing that okay, maybe that wasn't the major for me. I came in pre-med, or maybe that wasn't the university, but I do want, like, I know I'm destined for something, right? Like I couldn't have made it this far to just not make it. So I went to RAC. I took a couple semesters at Reading Area Community College, and fought my way back to my college. And I was like, you know what? I don't care if I'm the only Latina there. I don't care if I'm the only person there. I'm gonna make it, and I'm gonna prove everybody wrong that said that I wouldn't do it. And I'm so thankful that I had a village that was really just ready to openly welcome me at the university, and take me under their arm and give me advice, right? Questions that maybe if you went to college, you could go back and ask your parents, or, siblings that have went before you. I didn't have that. Right. So it was a lot of me coming into my own identity, finding out who I was, as well as getting my education. And, I really fell into the diversity, equity, and inclusion work, because I was like, there's not a lot of diversity here, but just because there's so few of us, why does that limit my resources, right? Like I'm nobody's pouring into me like how everybody else is pouring into other people here. I need a center. Why don't we have an intercultural center? Why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? So I wasn't silent about that. I would go knock on the door of the president, and I'm like, what are you doing about this? The school down the street, they have scholarships for Black and Latino students, and we have nothing here. What's going on? So through that, right, through a lot of pushing, I was put on a lot of leadership boards, and I felt so thankful for that. I got my bachelor's in social work, and then I went right back to Reading to help the people. Because there's not enough of us that come back, right? Sometimes when we leave the inner city, we go off, but I knew I had to go back and I had to serve. And that's when I did community mental health, inpatient, mental health, outpatient. I did emergency room psych care. And then from there, my love for implementing and marrying diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really focusing on, people of color receiving services, right? And we're talking about Latinx people who weren't even being able to receive therapy in their own language, right? People who don't have counselors that look like them, that can't relate to them. And so I had to stay there and continue the work and bring my colleagues up with me and try to teach as much as I could. And then from there, it just continued to blossom and went into the higher ed space, also working for diversity, equity, and inclusion centers at Penn State, Elizabethtown College, and then Millersville before I went to state government. And then it just continued from there.
And that's the difference, TaLisa, between someone who wants to make a difference and use their struggles, their experience to make things better for the person after them, and between someone who's just sitting there yelling at the dark instead of lighting a candle. We lost Victor.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you on that.
Yeah, I think you're describing, I think, what we all hear about, and it's like boiled down to one word, and it's representation. And so I think that matters, because sometimes, so let me ask you two questions. One, were you looking for representation? I think sometimes it's easier for some of us to follow a blueprint if the blueprint's already there. Yes. And so two, what does it feel like whenever you realized you were the one you were looking for and you were the one that had to do the blueprint? Was there a pressure? Was there a weight on your shoulders? Or was it the weight off of your shoulders when you thought, oh, I am the one I'm looking for. I can do this.
Wow, I just got chills with that. You hit the nail on the head for the honesty, right? Like that struggle where, I've never had a Latina or a Latinx professor before, or an Indigenous professor before. I never saw that representation, right? So here I am in school, you're saying that I can do these things, but I'm nobody looked like me here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it really wasn't until I came back, and it was that moment of reflection that I had at home, right? Where my mom was a single parent. She was
Mm-hmm.
sacrificing so much for me to be there at college. And a part of me was like, you know what? I don't have room to fail, because if I fail, where will my family be at? To be quite honest with you. So at that point, that's when I transitioned and transitioned and right into what you were saying. You know what? I think I have to be my own person, my own representation. I need to be able to look back, and I talk about this with Victor all the time, like Sankofa, where we look back and see what information we can gather, right? Where were the mistakes? What can we learn from? And go back and help and assist those who are coming next, those who are the next legacies, right? Because TaLisa and Victor ain't gonna be here all this time, right? We're here now and we're thriving. But who are the next TaLisa and Victors that we can bring up? Because what type of leaders would we be, right? What type of individuals would we be if we're here saying how much, we're fighting for vulnerable populations, when we were in those identities ourselves, and we know how powerful one person can be reaching back to help. So that's an honor to have, to do that, and a duty that we must fulfill. We need to reach back, and we need to bring those other TaLisas, those others Victors, those other leaders that are on the rise forward.
You just gave me chills.
Well
That was,
said.
yeah, absolutely beautiful. So Victor, we're all used to Zoom, cutting in and out. It's totally fine. So I'm glad you're here. So give us give us your background. Tell us where you came from. TaLisa's kind of the overall arcing, I would say the theme of her story is representation. So what was it like growing up? What was it like where you were born, growing up, and how did you come to be who you are today?
Yeah, so I was born in Rio Piedras, Puerto Rico, and my parents are both from the Dominican Republic. So my mother came here, um, in the 80s, undocumented, and without a penny in her pocket, and met my father in Puerto Rico, where she worked as like a housemaid, and made ends, like my mom's, you name it, my mom's done it, like construction, cooking at a restaurant. Like she did what she had to do to provide. And so early on, we moved to New York City, where I lived till I was about 7, and then we relocated here to Reading. And I liked living in Reading. It was fun. I had never experienced racism or anything like that, because I'd always been in communities where I was surrounded by people that looked like me. In New York City, we lived in the Bronx. When we moved to Reading, there was a large Latino population, not as large as it is now, but there was enough of us that I felt pretty comfortable. And later on, we would, in my mom's attempts to get us, in a better position. And my mom and dad both had a 4th and 5th grade education. And, for several reasons, my mom specifically, because she'd been working on a farm since she was 5. That's where my family was from. She lived in the slum in Dominican Republic. Um, and so she wasn't able to get an education. The kids were expected to work, the farm with the family. She worked, her and my father, they got a townhome for us outside of Reading, in a suburb, and it was nice. We had a yard, we could run around, it was safe. But it was the first time that I experienced racism, right? On a very visceral level, like being called a spick on the bus, being treated differently by my teachers. Um, and I wasn't doing very well in school at all. So I started to kind of take on that identity, right? Like, oh, so I'm the black kid, Latino kid that's, they're treating me like I'm bad, so I'm gonna act bad. I get into fights and whatnot. And eventually my mom lost, not lost, but we couldn't afford the house anymore. So she bought a house in Reading, which she remodeled with her bare hands. And that's where I spent, the rest of my childhood, living in inner city Reading on Front Street. And then it was hard coming back, right? Because having the quality of education and just, being in an environment where I didn't have to worry about my safety all the time and things like that. It was nice to be back in an area where I was surrounded by people that looked like me and had friendships, but it was also difficult to come back into, a school that wasn't funded as well as the school that I was. And I didn't understand that at the time. I just knew it felt better at that other school in that sense. So eventually what happened is I started playing basketball, and they were like, if you don't get your grades up, then you can't play. And so that kind of put me on track to start doing well in school. I'd always been smart. I just, my mom worked all the time, so she didn't have time to sit down and help me with my homework. Same thing with my father. And when I was in ninth grade, TaLisa's uncle, who I didn't know was her uncle at the time, actually, he's a motivational speaker who's from the town, the city that we're from. And he came to my high school and talked about how he went to college, and he was the admissions officer or admissions counselor at Kutztown. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to college. And so I got through high school, and it was rough. It kind of had some bad decisions were made, lost some people, in the environment that I was in. But I had a core group of friends that I always stuck with. And so senior year came, I got accepted to college at Millersville University. And so I packed my things and I left. And it's similar to TaLisa's experience where there was, by the time I got to Millersville, there was a nice group of Latinos there that I felt that are still friends. We're still friends. That's how me and TaLisa met in college. And, but I just felt like I didn't belong there, right? And so I'd come back home and I'm the college kid, and then at school, I'm the kid from the hood, right? So I don't fit in anywhere. It's this intersectional kind of like void that you fall into. And so similar to TaLisa, I just kind of, stayed in my room, stopped going to classes. I would participate in some organizations and do some things. So from the outside looking in, it looked like I was doing fine, but I wasn't. And I was struggling with mental health. And then by my senior year and when I was supposed to be graduating, which was around 2010, I was 300 pounds. So I'd been a basketball player my entire life, and from being so sedentary in college and just dealing with my depression and anxiety by eating, right? I was 300 pounds. I lost my eligibility for financial aid. I lost my apartment, and at that point it was like I have to go back home. And similar to TaLisa, like I remember viscerally, like the night that I found out, like I'm not going back to school. And what hurt the most is like coming back to all the people that were counting on you to fail, for them to say, yo, we were right. And so I came back, I got a job at a steel mill here in Reading. It's called Carpenter Technology, and it was swing shifts. It was great money. I was making great money. I was like 22 years old, making a salary that almost, what I make now back then, right? Like really good. I had a nice sports car. I had everything that I thought that I wanted when I was really poor. I had it, but something fell off to me. And so I had a lot of credits, right? Even though I didn't finish. And so I started applying for promotions, and eventually I got a business development representative job in the front office. I had also started to lose weight. I lost over 100 pounds. And so with that promotion and the weight loss, I had this sense of like, okay, I can accomplish things if I put my mind to it. And I had so much support around the weight loss. And but like 6 months into that job, I read a book called The Alchemist, which talks about the hero's journey. And I remember pulling over one day, coming home and like sobbing in my car. And I called my mom and I said, like, I have all of the things that I wanted, but I'm still not happy. And that's when I realized like this stuff doesn't matter to me. And I knew that I liked helping people because I was helping people lose weight. And I was like, well, this feels good. And eventually I figured out it's not the weight loss. I just like helping people. And so at my 6-month evaluation at that job, I walked in, I got a great review from my boss. They gave me some gift cards, and then I quit. And and I
Takes
went to the,
courage.
yeah. My wife wasn't happy. At the time, she was my fiance, but um, I quit and I went to work at a charter school in the city here in Reading, for $12 an hour part-time. I sold my car, I sold all my sneakers. And then we moved back to the house where I grew up in my neighborhood. And then that's really where my awakening came for myself, where I realized I was a truancy officer and I would go to kids' homes to get them up for school. And me coming into the job, I was inspired. I'm like, I'm gonna motivate these kids and they're gonna get up and go to school. And then I would go to a kid's house and he hadn't eaten in 2 days, or he'd been beat up, 17 times that year at school and had like post-traumatic stress disorder and wasn't getting any services, or the family was undocumented, right? And the parents were working 14-hour shifts. All of these issues that made me start to look at my life and the things that I had gone through and say, like, wait a minute, these are some of the things that I am going through or have gone through. And then I realized, my adverse childhood experience score is an 8, right? On a scale of 1 to 10. And so that's what made me really passionate about, they say all social workers or therapists go into this work to figure themselves out, right? And in that work, you kind of, you help people. And that, it was a parallel process for me as I was figuring out my own, my own trauma, my own identity. I was then able to guide other people to do the same thing. And so what happened, I got on food. This was, 7 years ago. I was on food stamps, on WIC, because my daughter had been born at that time. Medical assistance. And that's what kind of started my passion of like, okay, this kid is going through these issues. So then I became the attendance monitor. I ran the attendance department. Then I became a paraprofessional, and I'm like, this isn't enough either. Then I became a therapist for quite a while, and I was like, this isn't enough. And there was something that a professor said to me, after I had a couple years in school. My last year in grad school, the professor gave me this parable or whatever, where there's a bunch of people drowning in a river, and there's a guy that keeps jumping in and pulling out someone, and then someone else washes down and he's jumping in constantly. And then he sees someone walking by and he says, hey, jump in and come help me get these people out. And the guy says, no, I'm gonna go upstream and see why they're falling in here, right? And so that was my whole mentality, that like shifted me from, I can do the direct work, but I also need to go figure out what the hell's going on that's making this happen. And excuse my
Cause and
language.
effect.
And
No, you're good.
and so that's what I did. And so right when I graduated with my master's, my friend, who's now a representative for the 127th district, he saw me at a restaurant and he was like, hey, what do you think about politics? And I was like, I don't know. I like Bernie, but that's probably as far as it goes. And he was like, there's this fellowship with the governor. And so I applied for the William Penn Fellowship. I became the first male of color to be selected for that. And was drinking out of a fire hose for 1.5 years in that job. And then I had the opportunity to transition to the Office of Advocacy and Reform. And I knew that Dr. German was somebody who had lived experience, right, in poverty and homelessness. And I was like, he gets it. I want to go work for someone who gets it and that we could do good work with. And so about 1 year into the fellowship, I was offered a permanent position as an executive policy specialist. And then this last week, I was promoted to deputy director of the Office of Advocacy and Reform. And just like TaLisa, like everything that I do, it's not about me. right? And my ancestors, our ancestors, the way that they got through the things that they got through was by sharing the burden together, right? By carrying it together, not by being an individual, right? We were tribes. We cared for each other. We nursed each other back to health, and so that's very much what I hold in my soul and my heart, and that's what I bring to my work every day. And once you lose that, it's there's no purpose in it. Yeah, and I try to bring that into every space and wherever I can add my life experience. Or the nice thing about continuing to be a therapist and continuing to serve, minoritized populations or and Black and Brown communities specifically, is that I'm still hearing those stories. I'm still connected to the community. I still have family in that community that are going through those hardships. So when I talk about the things that I talk about when I'm in a room where I'm the only person of color, I'm not just talking anecdotally from my experience, but from data that I've gathered in my work and that I'm still gathering and that I hear and that I see. And so I've been privileged enough to be able to affect some things, I hope, in bringing those stories in the room whenever I'm able to.
You are. Amen. Amen. If you know Eric Adams, who just won the Democratic primary in New York City, mayor, the mayoral race to become the mayor for DC, he said the same exact thing on his interview last week. And instead of trying to help the people who are falling, go up the stream and see why, like find the roots, the problem, and solve it. And I think that's a very unique mentality. And I applaud you for everything you do.
Yeah, TaLisa, jump in. What do you think about all that?
No, yeah, like I said, Victor is my brother, and I agree with him. I think this is bigger than just TaLisa and Victor. This is for our communities, for the people who have faced similar struggles, for the people who maybe that struggles we have not faced, right? Who aren't in the room, but their voices still need to be heard. Their concerns still need to be heard. I think one of the things that Victor and I usually talk about is we get into this discussion where we're like, man, money isn't even everything. Give us what we need to live and we'll be good. Because if we live within our purpose and our passion, that's it. That's like, that's the epitome of life for me, honestly. And if I can change the trajectory of my family, of my legacy, right? But then those in our community as well. And one of the interesting things that we have also discussed, right? Like we come from like collectivist cultures where as a community we come together and we live within our own purpose and our own passion to fulfill the basic needs of the entire community, versus here in the States, I think it's kind of ran by capitalism, and it's a very heavy influence on individualism. And that's not the way that we're going to succeed. It's not. It can't be the way that we're going to succeed because people are going to be left in the margins. So in order for us to be effective, efficient, and holistic, we need to think about communities. So
I think individualism is a place to hide. It's a place to say my success is mine and everything that's going on for you is yours. And so, but the problem is that poverty is not an individual problem, and it's not a defect. It's not something that is a personal problem. And so I think, let me ask you this question. You guys are talking about experiencing like an enlightenment and all of this stuff while you're still in it. So did you know while you were in it that you were depressed? Did you have the verbiage? Did you have that? Because when you're the first generation to go to college, if you are the first generation to kind of, I don't even want to say break the mold, but sometimes you don't even have the verbiage. You're kind of doing multiple things parallel. You're helping other people, you're helping yourself, but you're also having to get like a basic knowledge. So did you know that you were experiencing that? Like when you say your childhood experience was an 8 out of 10, did you know that while it was happening, or was that later with some contrast?
I found out in my classes.
Okay.
Right? Like we're going over this material and it's so nice, and what a privilege it is that my colleagues were able to talk about this in theory, right? It was very like not tangential. And here I'm having like mind-blowing, like,
Epiphanies. Sitting there
yeah, I'm like,
quiet.
yes, like that's why I did that. This is trauma. And so then that unleashed a whole different part of what I was experiencing, right? I think it was my senior year where I was finally able to say, when I finally got out into the field and I had an internship at the Hershey Medical Center in the ER. I was doing emergency room psych consults. And I was like, wow, I'm doing these checklists and this is all me. And I'm providing these services and this is all me. And it wasn't until, my senior year when I was doing my research project that I was like, wow, I have an ACE score of 9. Like technically I'm not even supposed to be in these spaces, right? Like every day I'm showing up and I'm fighting the statistics that are placed on our people who are experiencing or who have experienced trauma, right?
Yeah.
So for me I was coming into this knowledge in the classroom, for my professional career, but also for filling in the blanks of all of the issues that have happened and arisen in my life. And Victor, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's similar for me where I think when I had the job, right, that was paying me really well, and I had made this really like amazing like journey with weight loss, and I was like, well, what's going on? Why do I still feel this way? And um up until that point, I can remember like sparsely or a couple times where I tried to go to a therapist, but they didn't look like me. They really didn't understand where I was coming from, or I just didn't have the knowledge. In our culture, like we said, we deal with our stuff within communities, and so there's always that stigma also of like you're not depressed. What are you talking about? You have a good job. You have this. You have that. And so there was that. I didn't even have the vocabulary to understand like what depression was. I just knew I didn't feel good. But then when I started to see it in other people, and the kids that I was working with, and understanding like, oh, this kid is like acting out in school because of this issue at home. And then I started to make those connections. And then what drove me even more was, okay, well, I look like them, right? I come from where they come from. And so I have this like unique opportunity to be able to bring this education and potentially disrupt that. And so that drove me into the field. And then the learning happened kind of, almost intertwined with the enlightenment. And still to this day, as I do the work that I do, every day I learn something else about myself and about my community and about the issues that we see. That helps me be a better person and helps me be a better father and a better husband and a better member of my community. So I think it's the enlightenment and doing the work and all of these things that are happening are kind of like intertwined and happening simultaneously for me and ongoing. I don't think that work ever ends, to be honest.
We had Judge Carolyn Nichols on. She is on the Superior Court. And in her intro, I said, tell us a little bit about yourself. And one of her first words was trauma informed. And I just threw my notes away at that point. I was like, we're going to go off of this because it was such an important idea. So you guys are talking about being trauma informed, and you're imagining that probably could have helped you had the people in your life been trauma informed when you were young. Imagine how transformational that would have been for you. But now you're trying to bring that. You're trying to bring that to Pennsylvania. So what does that mean in your job with the governor? How are we working? How are we practically doing things to make sure that we are trauma informed in our everyday lives? So TaLisa, give us a quick answer on that, and then we'll do our lightning round after this question.
Yeah, that's fine. I think, when we talk about trauma-informed care or trauma-informed approaches, right? It's really asking and challenging individuals to change the narrative or the questioning to what's wrong with you to what has happened to you, right? Like understanding that what people are experiencing in this present moment, it is a culmination of significant events that could be, traumatizing, or a single traumatizing event as well, that leads to and impacts areas of life, that everything is interconnected, right? So if one is not dealing with their mental health, they're going to begin to experience physical symptoms due to not dealing with those mental health symptoms, right? And understanding how that then can lead to physical ailments, increased and chronic issues, autoimmune issues that then affect employment, right? Finances, things of that sort. So in that context, right, thinking about it on a micro level, but then also when you think of it on a macro level and you think about communities, right, where it wasn't too far ago where my grandparents, their family and their friends in Puerto Rico were experiencing sterilization. And how does that manifest, right, through intergenerational trauma?
Yeah.
So we're not only dealing with the impact of traumatic events that are currently happening and that we're involved with, but those that our ancestors and those who have come before us have experienced as well, right? And now with significant research, we have seen that families pass on trauma responses. So understanding that, and how does that intersect with policy? How does that intersect with social services and how we provide services to Pennsylvania, right? And Victor, if you have anything else you wanted to kind of pinpoint in there.
Yeah, and just to add, and that's something that's been at the forefront of a lot of the work that we're doing, transforming the state into a healing center state, right? Whether that's state government or a business or schools. For me, my passion in this is also making sure that we don't fall into the margins of what trauma-informed care means, right? Because if you have someone who had a car accident, right? And they're responding to this car accident with very acute symptoms of flashbacks, nightmares, et cetera. The whole checklist that's in the DSM, the diagnostic manual that would make them eligible to be diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And then you have a child who's been living in an urban community for 12 years, has witnessed drive-by shootings, has seen someone get shot on the street, and all of these other different traumas that they experience that are complex, right? Complex PTSD. One of those will get the PTSD diagnosis and the other one won't. And so when we talk about trauma-informed, it's not just about understanding something that happened that you need to pay attention to, but there's very, very specific or very culturally, you need to be culturally aware to be able to understand the population that you're working with, what kind of things they go through, right? So a kid who's from my neighborhood might talk to you with their hands. What does that mean when they're talking to the police? Are they now aggressive because they're talking with their hands, right? How is that person going to respond? So I think my work in trauma-informed care, at least from my perspective, goes beyond just the understanding of what trauma is, but also trying to bring, again, those unique experiences that often fall into the margins. Then you implement a trauma-informed care framework in a community, and somehow, there's still trauma. There's not a response to the trauma of that community because we're not paying attention to those experiences.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible, because imagine you could implement that and it would change the way that we approach schooling, juvenile detention, policing, compassionate care. It would absolutely transform, society if we were to actually take that approach. So you guys are just absolutely fabulous. I've never asked someone what the atmosphere of their job is like before, but I was like, I bet the atmosphere where you guys is just absolutely electric. So we are at our lightning round. This is our favorite part of the show. We are going to learn a little bit about you specifically. I know we always talk about our ideas and all of the things that you've been working on, but we want to leave here knowing a little bit about you as people. So are you guys good with that? We're good with the lightning round together?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay. I'll ask the question, and then TaLisa, you can go, and then Victor, you can go, and we'll kind of go through these. Just give us what's on the top of your head. First thing. So first question.
Quick response.
Okay.
Okay. So, best job, worst job. Have you ever had a job, you might be the one you have now, that you absolutely loved, or a job you couldn't wait to leave?
Oh, best job, best job. So I've only been at the governor's office for a week. So I'm or 2 weeks, okay? But I feel like my best job was actually at Penn State. I was working with first generation college students, and just they were just amazing. And then I think my worst job,
You don't have to name a name if you don't.
I was a waitress for a while, and
Okay.
that was not trauma informed. So I will say that was a difficult job.
Amen.
Well,
Amen. Victor.
Yeah, I would say my current job is my favorite. I have a great relationship with my boss. He's invested in my growth as a leader. And so definitely my job with the governor's office. Worst job was working the stock room in TJ Maxx when I was in college. That was not fun.
I'll say.
I don't think I'm ever expecting someone's worst job. I'm always surprised at what they say.
Yeah.
Okay, TaLisa, favorite place to visit can be in PA. It can be domestically. It can be anywhere.
Puerto Rico, going back home. Puerto Rico, the beach, seeing my family, returning back to my island, and just connecting with the ancestors.
Good answer. What about you, Victor?
Yeah, my grandparents' farm in Dominican Republic.
I love
All
that.
right, we'll go there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So, in your hometown now, where you currently have your home base, what is a meal that we can't miss if we were to go there? What meal should we have?
So where I'm currently living at right now,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh. Victor, you have to go first, Victor. I'm trying to.
I won't have an answer to that either
Yeah.
if she asks me.
I would say a chimi. So that's like a Dominican sandwich that is like beef. It's kind of like a burger, but it tastes different. It's a Dominican sandwich, and it's the best.
You can do a home cooked meal. You can do anything you want. What should we not miss? What do we need to know about?
So I want to highlight, because I'm really big into like small businesses in the Lancaster area. There is a couple of small businesses, and there's one particular, I think it's called El Boricua. It's in La Isla, and it's in Lancaster City. The best Puerto Rican. I'm talking about straight from the island. It tastes amazing. So if you're ever in Lancaster City, you need to check them out. They're downtown.
Will do.
That's the kind of answer we love. I love it. What job did you want when you were a child? What did you think you were going to be when you were young?
Oh my goodness. So for a while I wanted to be a trash man. For a while I did. And then I went to Catholic school when I was really young, and I wanted to be a nun for a little bit. That only lasted a year. And so that was, but I went to college. I went to college pre-med, and I was gonna do orthodontistry, and I left a social worker ready for radical change and testing. So don't get stuck in a box, y'all. What is supposed to be, what will always be, what will always be.
Before you move to Victor, my kids used to say, why it says mailman. So from early age, they're 20 and 14 now. When they were little, so we start saying mailman / woman. So trash man, woman. Yeah. Victor?
I wanted to be a police officer when I was little. And what else? And then, I had basketball dreams for a while. And then after I got older, though, it was just kind of like figuring it out, so I never really I didn't know what it was, but I knew that there was something that I was supposed to do. And I just kept searching until I found it.
What is something that you're looking forward to in 2021? What's exciting to you right now? I know we just had a hell of a year in 2020, but like, what's on the horizon that you're really excited about?
Oh my gosh. I have to go back to the work at the governor's office, right? I think it's so funny because there has been times where Victor and our lives have intersected, and now we're working together at both locations at our job. And with our new work at our outpatient office, serving the BIPOC community in Central PA, but then also, at the governor's office, I'm just so excited to see what we can do and how we can pour into people and just serve. honestly, just serve others. So that is like my highlight, and I can't wait to see what the rest of this year looks like.
I love it.
TaLisa, I'm with you 100% on that, but I'm gonna say I have a 2-week vacation plan.
Oh, that's it. Self-care, self-care.
With my
I
little
love
girls
that.
and my wife in November. We're going to Dominican Republic for 2 weeks, so it'll be the first time my daughters will be there, and then their cousins and everything. I'm excited for that.
Wow. That's a fabulous answer. Well, thank you so much for you both. Absolutely fabulous conversation. You gave us so much information. We didn't even touch on Harvest 3. You have to come back. We can have another convo and kind of get into everything you're doing there, because I feel like that's a nice complement to everything that we're kind of talking about here. But I hope that this convo has helped our audience understand a little bit about representation, about diversity and inclusion, and all of the different ways that we can see that in our everyday lives. So TaLisa, Victor, thank you so much. I know you're busy. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
And hopefully people now know where to reach to get help, and they can contact you. I put your information and I put your names, and feel free to comment once we're done with the link that you want people to follow or to check things out. Thank you both for being here, and thank you everyone for watching.